Mr. Oshoma, I mean, it becomes very worrisome and interesting for some of us when we see that it looks like politicians and their lawyers continue to, intentionally waste the time of the court and continue to make the same mistake. Please help us break this down, because in the first judgment of the tribunal, Adekunle Rufai Omaje, who filed the joint petition, had no local standard to institute this case, as his petition was not based on election-related matters. Among other points, the tribunal held that he did not participate in that governorship election. Is this an intentional effort to continue to frustrate the efforts of the courts?
I think what is happening here is the fact that, you see, to encourage supporters. So even when parties know that they have no business at the tribunal, they still go to the tribunal. And then because there are no, actions and inactions, there must be consequences to actions and inactions in Nigeria. That's what what can deter, actions like this. I think there should be heavy punitive consequences against such political parties and parties.
What about
so that
lawyers?
When you're approaching, that's also when there are punitive measures against the parties and their lawyers, certainly, because I agree with you, certainly that will deter people. And a situation where you know that you did not have a candidate in an election, and you know that the ground for filing election petition is that not just that you are just a political party, but you must first almost have a candidate. You must have feeded a candidate, must have feeded a candidate in that election. But in this case, you don't have a candidate. You didn't feed a candidate for the election, a pre-election matter. You approach the tribunal. And because the court had ruled that tribunal must take all matters and reserve judgment at the final stage to avoid preliminary appeals, then you see people bring frivolous matters and the tribunal having to, sit down patiently and deal with all of those matters and reserve judgment at the tail end or at the end of all of the petition. So it is... I think what can deter such measures would be punitive measures for both the parties and their lawyers. Maybe punitive fine to be paid from their pocket, and then NBA can take up such matters. So I think that will deter a lot of people where you just dump documents on judges and expect them to read through the gamut of all of those documents. I saw that one as a very frivolous, rabble-rousing petition. And then secondly also, you find out that even when lawyers know that there is no merit in a petition, because they know they want to calm or assuage their teaming supporters that there is something in the offing. And so they still approach the tribunal and you hear them saying, oh yes, we have a case. Meanwhile, what they canvass on social media is completely different. It's at variance with the issues that they canvass in court. In court, they are asking for nullification of an election that the court should declare that the election be reconducted. But they go to social media to say, oh, look, we won that election and we're going to claim our mandate. And in some cases, like, in this case, you have 100 and something polling units where you are alleging discrepancies. And you call 19 witnesses. And of those 19 witnesses, maybe 11 are from polling units. Even if all of those 11 polling unit agents are able to prove irregularities, we talk about substantiality. Electoral Act talks about substantiality of irregularity. How substantial is 11 compared to 100 and something? So you would now begin to ask yourself, because the court had ruled even in Obasanjo and INEC, so that, even though, like the Supreme Court ruled in that case, that the irregularities were proved in Ogun State, but it wasn't substantial enough to affect the overall outcome of the election. So in this case, all of these precedents are already laid down. But because politicians will want to, give an impression to their supporters that, they have a case, and then lawyers also want to make money, they just approach the tribunal, knowing they give hope. And then knowing fully well that, there is no meat in it. So some of us saw these things and we're called names that, look, there's nothing in this petition and it's dead on arrival. But we're called names. Anyway, they said they are proceeding to Court of Appeal.
So, Mr. Oshoma, even with the PDP, And I want to have your broader perspective on this, because expectedly, we all thought PDP should know better. And also because I had a conversation with Aso Godalo, who, I mean, convincingly, without any doubts, convinced me that he had enough evidence to strike out the case or to win or reclaim his mandate, so to speak. What could have gone wrong?
Well, why, without, Aso is a very senior lawyer, and he knows, but I would not want to, at this stage, I'll probably say he probably is wearing the toga of a politician at that instance, and then maybe he's been encouraged, and then they have told themselves that they have, a gamut of evidence. But the question you will ask yourself is, the court also had consistently ruled on the issue of dumping of materials. When you allege overvoting, you must also speak to the document that you have tendered. And so that is why I do not file petitions. No matter how much you are paying me, I will tell you that, except you want to waste your money, we will lose, because the time for proving irregularity is not enough, except there is a very technical and moot point that the court will have to take, maybe on issue of, qualification. Let's say the court, the Constitution talks about the basic requirement, which is school certificate. And maybe the person tendered a school certificate that had been held to be forged and fake, and you have overwhelming evidence to that effect, and there is a court judgment to that effect. On that ground, it becomes very easy. You're not even talking about irregularities now, but competent qualification. But you find out a situation where you now begin to talk about proving irregularity. The last case that was nullified by the court on grounds of irregularity was before the 180 days rule. That was, I think, was it Peter Obi's case? And it took the court almost 3 years before that judgment was delivered. The Oshomole's case took the court a year and a half before the judgment was delivered in that matter. As for the Bayelsa case, it was on the ground of qualification and not irregularities. So when you look at all of these things and you know fully well that the time for proving irregularity is very, very short, you see lawyers still, go ahead trying to pass, a wall that, is insurmountable. You're talking about irregularity, and then you're talking about overvoting. The court had talked about the beavers machine, examination of the beavers machine. And then the last hurdle is the fact that the presumption of regularity is consistently in favor of INEC. Once results are announced by INEC, they are presumed regular. And so it is now you who is alleging irregularity, who is alleging that the results are not regular. The onus is now on you to prove that they are not, the result is not regular. It is not on the man who conducted the election. So that note should be well taken for people who are saying, the judgment had been procured. No. The law, the position of the law, unlike where you say he who assert must prove. In this case now, he who assert irregularity is the person that will prove irregularity. So because the law already presumed everything was done properly.